Tvcrazyman here. Today we're looking at classic TV westerns with goofs and bloopers and all kinds of fun facts that you may not have known before, from shows like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Maverick, and lots more. Cars and airplanes from the future invading the Old West, stuntmen, continuity errors, and funny foul-ups you never would believe possible from our heroes from the Old West. Now that is one strange looking horse. Kind of makes you expect to see Rod Serling pop up somewhere, doesn't it? Now see if you can spot this next scoop behind Dennis Weaver, aka Chester, and James Arness. How about now? Now westerns are a lot of fun, but it's even more fun to try to spot the cars in the westerns. I wonder if Doc Brown had anything to do with this.
What a hit.
My name's Johnny Gibbs. I'm brother-in-law to Lucas McCain.
Now here's another unidentified driving object on one of my favorite TV westerns of all time, The Rifleman.
I'm headed for Cheyenne. I came to say goodbye.
Instead of a car, in this one it's a modern-day tractor, partially covered up on this episode of Bat Masterson. Well, it was modern when the show was filmed. I bet you almost expect to see something from 2024 pop up somewhere, don't you? Airplanes and automobiles popped up a few times on the Wild Wild West, starring Robert Conrad and Ross Martin. And they didn't call it wild for nothing. Another jet or airplane pops up in the episode The Night of the Gruesome Games. In the episode The Night of the Turncoat, it looks kind of like they filmed it near an interstate. You can even see what looks like maybe a truck driving by on the far left. Well, let's head back to Dodge for some more goofs.
Your money's as good as gone. Believe me. What is that?
Well, it sounds an awful lot like the banker Mr. Drysdale from the Beverly Hillbillies, played by Raymond Bailey. Now, strangely enough, years before he was a stingy banker, in this 1955 episode of Gunsmoke, Bailey played a man known for tall tales that feels obligated to try and warn Dodge about a crooked banker. Coincidence? I wonder.
No, it couldn't be.
Now, strange as that may be, it's not the goof. The goof is much stranger. Now, first Matt Dillon is talking to the accused banker in the bank. Then they hear Bailey's character outside yelling. Then we see what looks like Dillon walking up. But then they switch back to the inside of the bank where Dillon is just now heading outside.
In there, your money's as good as gone. Believe me. What is that? Take your hand.
So how can Matt Dillon be in two places at once?
This week's current edition of Make Believe is being shot on location, and that location is the Twilight Zone.
In the Christmas-themed episode Magnus, Dodge needed some snow, because it's Christmas. But the snow looks an awfully lot like soap to me, or something similar. You can see it sort of oozing down the side of the building here. It's all gooey and mushy. Whatever it is, it ain't snow.
Howdy, boys.
Okay, I'm not a horse expert, but does throwing the reins of a horse behind a rock let the horse know he's not supposed to move? I do have a feeling that there is somebody behind that rock holding the horse's reins. It's just a feeling.
Get out of Dodge.
The title of this first season episode is Obie Tater, a character played by Royal Dano. The thing of it is, I'd swear they were poking fun at Opie Taylor, from the Andy Griffith Show, but Opie wouldn't exist for another 5 years when he first appeared on the Danny Thomas Show. So, what gives here? Not really a goof, I just thought it was very interesting.
Believe it or not.
Quick side note, Royal Dano would appear on Gunsmoke 13 times as mostly different characters. And of course, Gunsmoke was the longest running TV Western of all time, lasting for 20 seasons.
I said get out of Dodge.
But wait, there's more. I wonder if those two men have really put much thought into standing behind Matt Dillon. I guess it's possible they've never seen a Western before. Chester is ambushed on the trail of a desperado, so he hightails it back to Mr. Dillon's spot. But apparently he thought he better change his shirt first. I guess dark colors aren't fashionable for ambushes. Now some blooper outtakes from Gunsmoke.
Save it.
You killed him. I need to draw his monkey wrench.
I wonder if he was having flashbacks to his 1951 role as the Thing from Another World.
Got it.
Save it.
And by the way, them credentials I give you, I might have need of them. Oh, sure.
You already got him. Now, you people are going to be settling within 30 miles of Dodge City, and I don't want to hear anything about any more stuff like, oh, shucks.
Yeah, let's start again, huh? Yeah, that's it. That's the spot. Hiya, guy. Pow. Better come on back.
Hey, there's no ice cream on a stick in the West.
What's going?
I resign anyway.
You young pup, you're fired.
Before he was Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, James Arness was only a deputy sheriff on the episode of The Lone Ranger entitled A Matter of Courage.
Hey, I better ask for my badge back. I'm going to need a job.
Now let's head to the Ponderosa. Bonanza was the second longest running Western of all time, running 14 seasons. So you know they had some goofs and bloopers. In this episode, it looks like Hoss is about to take on a man in a bear suit. And I'd hate to be that man. You know, I think they actually traded out Hoss for a bear trainer and a real bear at one point. Which is a whole lot better than a modern day CGI animal. They never look right to me. So what do you guys think? Would you rather see a guy in a bear suit or a CGI computer generated bear?
But they're not my cards. I forgot to blow the line.
Cards.
All right.
Now this fella is having a really bad day. First he loses a gunfight and then they step on his hand.
Yeah, that sure is a lot of bull, all right, Bob.
That is a cut, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a cut.
Yeah. I don't know whether... Make you say a thing like that? Sure. Hey,
The shadows in the backdrop here make it look awfully flat.
cut. Okay.
Oh, Jesus!
Just a minute, who you trying to kid?
It's certainly a lot of bull.
Now I first saw the Rifleman on reruns when I was a kid back in the early 80s. And to me, besides the Lone Ranger, Lucas McCain was the closest thing to a Western superhero that there was. He could do amazing things with that rifle of his. But even the best shows can have the occasional goof. Mark McCain is hanging on a cliff when Michael Landon stops by and helps him back up. Now notice that Mark has lost his hat somewhere along the line. But it mysteriously pops back onto his head on the way back up.
I can lift 300 pounds. Picked up a horse once. You want me to show you? Yeah, let me see you do it.
In this scene, Chuck Connors, as Lucas McCain, is trying to break a horse when he's suddenly thrown. But just how far did he get thrown anyway? The only horse without a rider is back behind another cowboy. It's always a giveaway that they've switched to a stuntman when one of the actors suddenly grows hair. And sometimes you can tell it's a stuntman when the actor's actions don't coordinate exactly with the stuntman's. As in this case, Chuck Connors has his hat off, and the stuntman is making sure that his hat is on. If you keep your eye out on reflections, sometimes you can catch some pretty strange things. Like in this scene, the reflections in the window, it looks like there's two crewmen, I assume, bending down out of sight, or so they thought. Sometimes the camera catches more than it's supposed to, like when actors are waiting for their cue to come into a scene. In the window you can see Johnny Crawford and Chuck Connors waiting for their cue to ride their horses into town. It's a case of David versus Goliath when Sammy Davis Jr. tries to take on the Rifleman.
Don't do it!
But in this case, the short guy is in the wrong. The only issue with this great episode is I question whether or not the townsfolk would actually stand behind a gunfighter when they know he's about to draw. In the episode Waste, Lucas and Mark enter a deserted-looking town, but as they enter it, it appears that several of the buildings are fake. Sometimes the use of stock footage from a previous episode can make it look like characters are changing clothes back and forth for no apparent reason. Like in this episode where Mark is locked in a shed with this shirt on, and then it looks like he's wearing, I guess, a dark jacket, and then he's back to wearing just that shirt when he finally gets out. You take this scene where it looks like Lucas decided to put his jacket on to go inside. And in this episode, using stock footage makes it appear as though Lucas can't decide if he wants to wear short sleeves or long sleeves when he's riding his horse. Now here's a blooper from F-Trip.
This once entire Cowie territory. Then you make treaty, we divide land. Holy...
You know, I wonder if he grabbed the wrong prop or if he just thought he could break that stick. Another one of the greatest Western TV series of all time was Maverick,
Naturally, I'm flattered.
which starred James Garner, Jack Kelly, and even James Bond himself, Roger Moore. You know, stock footage caused Maverick problems too on occasion. Whenever you see a stagecoach, count the horses. On a lot of westerns, the number will change from scene to scene. Like in the episode Rage for Vengeance, 4 horses turn into 6 by the time they get into town. Now, backdrops can be a problem. It really takes you out of the action when you know it's inside a studio. And in the episode The Burning Sky featuring Jack Kelly, there's something weird going on with this backdrop. Part of the mountain is cut off for some reason. Alias, Smith and Jones is a fun western from the early 70s that featured 2 outlaws that decided to go straight and seek amnesty. This show had problems with horses and stagecoaches too, believe it or not. In this episode from the 2nd season that featured Roger Davis as Hayes, the 2 reformed outlaws get onto a stage where their horse is tied behind. But by the time the stage gets going good, their horses have totally disappeared. I got a feeling that came as quite a surprise. Now here's a fun one from the 70s martial arts western, Kung Fu. In this scene, the 2 men are fighting it out, all alone. There's no one around, except John Saxon, David Carradine, and John Saxon Stuntman. And now a couple of bloopers from Have Gun Will Travel, starring Richard Boone.
Where's the proof?
He's right, Paddlin.
Where's the proof?
He's right. You didn't bring any proof, Paddlin.
What? Where's the evidence? Where's the proof?
He's right, Paddlin.
Okay, this is one of my favorite bloopers of all time. I just love it.
You are beautiful, and your faith is beautiful. But sometimes the essence of beauty is agility.
Now let's head back into the Wild Wild West, starring Robert Conrad and Ross Martin. You know, they say you just can't keep a good man down, but in the episode The Night of the Glowing Corpse, they really meant it. Philip Hine plays Lieutenant Renard, who is seen at the beginning of the episode talking to Artemis. Then later on he's found by West, deceased in a coffin. But then at the end of the episode, West walks by him and Artemis talking again in the exact same scene they showed us at the beginning of the episode.
How'd you like that?
This next episode, despite containing what I consider to be a few goofs, is a fun episode to watch.
It's not possible.
The episode The Night of the Human Trigger guest stars one of my favorite actors, Burgess Meredith, as basically a Western supervillain who uses his genius-level calculations and well-placed explosions to start earthquakes. This episode aired just a little over a month before his debut as another supervillain, the Penguin on the 1966 Batman series.
Why do you have to die?
My sentiments exactly.
Just like he would do the Batman and Robin in the very near future, Meredith puts Jim West and Artemis in a deadly trap where, tied up, they will ride down a track to certain doom. Luckily, they devise a plan to escape. By rocking the cart back and forth, they are able to make it fall over before they go into a rock crusher. Of course, knowing that their legs weren't tied up, I had a crazy thought myself. Maybe they could have just, stood up and stepped out of the trap. Of course, that would have been a lot less dramatic.
This little pendulum touches either contact.
Later, West is put into another trap set to explode if he even dares to take a deep breath.
Holy sorry booms!
But luckily, it doesn't go off when Burgess Meredith appears to trip over the line. And you could even hear the pendulum smack one of the metal contacts, which was supposed to set off the earthquake and then the explosion. Intentional or not, either way, it adds humor to an already funny episode, which, being a very humorous episode to start with, they could afford to leave this scene in one way or the other. In the episode, The Night of the Torture Chamber, we see just how strong Jim West is when he leaves a dent in a brick wall with a guard's head. In the episode, The Night of the Druid's Blood, comedian Don Rickles guest stars as a bad guy, villainous looking mustache and all. Too bad he can't keep the mustache on. Even funnier is how they gave him a close-up just as he starts to lose his mustache. I know it's possible it was a joke, but I don't think it was intentional.
That's pretty corny, pal. Yeah.
Rickles faces off against Conrad in a fight scene. I wonder how long it took before he yelled, "Cut! Where's my stuntman?"
You are insolent, aren't you?
Well, it probably didn't take long. In the episode, The Night of the Deadly Bed, we see that Jim West is made out of steel. When West lifts a solid steel beam and it hits his leg, it seems like it would have hurt. Unless it wasn't really made of steel. Now, I'm not saying for sure because it's possible he just ignored the pain and went on with the scene. If it was real, I bet he had a pretty good sized bruise the next day. Now, acting back then was pretty painful. As we know, Robert Conrad did do at least most of his own stunts, resulting in a hospital stay once. In the episode, The Night of the Turncoat, in an underwater scene, a man in scuba gear pops up behind Jim West for no apparent reason. Not to mention the fact that I don't think scuba gear was a thing in the OS, but then of course this was the Wild Wild West TV show where such a thing could be possible, I suppose.
Artie, you cover the back door.
Wait a minute, that doesn't look like Artemis. Does that guy look like Artie to you? At times Ross Martin had some health issues, even had a heart attack at one point and he had to miss a few episodes. So occasionally I think they had to throw in stand-ins just to finish out the episodes. Now a little trivia. There's a lot of connections between the Wild Wild West TV show and Gilligan's Island, believe it or not. On the episode The Night of the Murderous Spring, the recurring Wild West villain Dr. Lovelace is seen hanging out in Gilligan's Lagoon. They must have used a lot of fake trees that they could just move in and out easily, as the house in the background of the Wild West scene is hidden in the Gilligan's Island scene. Unless, of course, they moved that house back and forth. And here's another scene from that episode where Dr. Lovelace sinks in the same lagoon that Gilligan himself has sunk so many times before. And here's one from the episode The Night of the Sudden Death. The easiest way to recognize it is the falls that you see here. Dawn Wells, aka Mary Ann, was in the episode The Night of the Headless Woman. Jim Backus, aka Mr. Howell, was on the episode The Night of the Sabatini Death. Also on that same episode was Alan Hale Jr., aka the Skipper.
I'm going to spend a vacation all alone on a desert island. Jim, see ya.
Yes, they really did play the theme from Gilligan's Island on that episode. Speaking of Gilligan's Island, I've got a Goose video on that show you might like to watch. And now, the Lone Ranger TV series that starred Jay Silverheels as Tonto, Clayton Moore, and John Hart as the Lone Ranger.
You are Lone Ranger. Hold it.
Yeah, I didn't use any editing tricks. That's the way it really happened.
Hold it.
Believe it or not.
Hold it.
Back in the day, they didn't always use stuntmen. Often they just used dummies to do falls, which were usually pretty noticeable. Like when this bad guy from the movie Lone Ranger in the City of Gold falls suddenly. Of course, at least he didn't scream like a girl before turning into a falling dummy like this guy from episode 2 of the Lone Ranger. It is a little confusing as to why they would dub in a woman screaming for this dude. There's nothing more inspiring or iconic than the Lone Ranger's "Hi-Yo Silver Away," but in this ending scene, the signs are all flipped backwards. Now there's a little controversy over whether or not it's "Hi-Ho" or "Hi-Yo," but from what I read, it's definitely "Hi-Yo." Now see, I had to look it up because when I was a kid, I used to always shout "Hi-Yo Silver Away." Notice all the shadows in the backdrop behind the stagecoach. Kind of looks like the stagecoach was just suddenly walled inside of a room. And you know, the best thing about westerns is seeing the great western landscapes, not all the indoor stuff. Oh look, it's Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes. I mean, the actor John Banner. Now maybe it's not noticeable to the average viewer, but I've seen Hogan's Heroes enough to know that the guy fighting the Lone Ranger in this scene is definitely not Sergeant Schultz. It's gotta be a stunt double. Now in this scene, Tonto's stunt double gets into a fight with a bad guy, and the fight gets so intense that the whole wall almost caves in.
The nearest town is Pine Gap. There's a jeweler there.
Yeah, it's pretty small, but you can definitely see a car way out in the distance. This next one I think was created in the download process. I saw it on the Lone Ranger channel on YouTube, which by the way, you can watch all the episodes of the Lone Ranger on. This could be a digital goof, or this could be something really spooky, but it's cool. I'm just not sure. You ever notice how sometimes when they switch from an outdoor to a studio shot that the background just seems to turn into nothing but plain sky? The Lone Ranger's true superpower, and one that puts him up there with the likes of Superman in my book, is his unwavering moral code and dedication to justice.
I happen to believe that when a man's in the right, he has no reason to be afraid.
The masked man is the brother to every law-abiding man, whatever his race or color.
These traits were summed up in the Lone Ranger's creed, created by the men who brought life to the Lone Ranger, George W. Trindle and Franz Stryker, through a radio show in 1933. The creed was repeated many times by Clayton Moore in public appearances. It states,
I believe to have a friend, a man must be one.
We will ride together.
That all men are created equal, and everyone has the right and the power within themselves to help make this a greater world. I believe that God put the firewood on earth, but every man must gather and light it himself.
Every man needs a faith and a symbol to live by.
We must make the best of what equipment that we have. And I believe in being prepared physically, mentally, and morally to fight when necessary for that which is right. I believe that sooner or later, somewhere, somehow, we must settle with this earth to make payment for what we have taken. That this country of the people and by the people and for the people shall live forever. And everything changes, but the truth alone lives on forever. I believe in my Creator.
Build church no matter who try to stop him. I like his spirit. He sounds like a man who will fight evil no matter how great the odds.
My country, my fellow man.
Did you know there were 2 Lone Rangers on the original TV series run? John Hart, who had appeared on a couple episodes of The Lone Ranger as a guard and a henchman before playing the Lone Ranger for all of season 3. By season 4, Clayton Moore was back. Now, I've heard it said that Moore didn't know why he was fired, and utter speculation that it was over money or a contract dispute. And now, some of my bloopers as I continue my quest to conquer narrating in front of the camera. Tvcrazyman here. Today we're talking about classic TV westerns with goofs and bloopers from Tvcrazyman here. We're going to go back to the Old West to talk about Well, okay, Pilgrim, this is Tvcrazyman here, going back to the Old West.
Plenty strange.
With classic TV shows like Gunsmoke and Bonanza and Rawhide. No, not Rawhide, never mind. Or lots of fun trivia from Gunsmoke and Maverick and Bonanza. Hang on to your hats, partners, and your horses. So hang on to your horses, because it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you if you have. Did it again. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, thanks so much. And hit the bell for future notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Hit like and comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. And don't forget to check out all the other videos we have on classic television.
You were so close.